how are you? This lecture covers sampling techniques in which I will talk to you about sampling strategies. Random sampling in particular, and also sampling methods for qualitative research. The three primary sampling strategies you will find in experimentation consist of random sampling, convenience sampling, and purposive sampling. In random sampling, anyone in the population has an equal chance of being in your sample. So, for instance, suppose that your population of interest is all undergraduate students at the University of Central Florida. Clearly, we cannot sample all of those people, but in a true random sample, it means that anyone in that population has an equal probability or an equal chance of getting into your sample. This means that the likelihood that an engineering major will be in your sample is just as likely as, say, a public administration major or psychology major. Theoretically, this is ideal. We want to be able to represent anyone in our population equally well, but it's not practical. It's not feasible. So, for instance, if we are saying all undergraduate students, we are assuming that those are the students who attend classes at night as well as in the day. It may not be feasible for students who attend school just at night to show up for research experiment in the daytime. Likewise, if we conduct our research in the evening, there may be students with families who can only show up in the daytime. So, therefore, it's not likely that we are going to have a true random sample. It's what we would like to have, but it's very difficult to pull off. Most studies use convenience samples. This is a sample in which people are easily accessible. I mean, that most people use convenience samples doesn't mean it's okay. Because it's, this sample is this sample in which people are easily accessible are admitted into this into the study. So convenience sample means that we are getting people and the study who are easy to obtain. For instance, I often had students who were conducting research obtained their sample from the university center. So they would simply go to the common eating areas and take their surveys with them and ask people who were having lunch if they would complete their surveys. That was a convenient sample. Place where you work. I've also had students who would go to their place of employment, take their surveys with them, and then ask their students, ask their fellow employees if they would help them with research. Classmates is probably one of the most popular. This was a very common method of collecting data. When I was in graduate school, very often we would ask our other graduate students, often people who are in classes or who are in our cohorts, if they would help us out with our research projects by completing surveys or participating in other sort of tests. We don't do this in this course anymore. Nowadays, we don't do that anymore because we don't have, in this course, we don't have time to do it, collect the data, things like that. And also, more importantly, PAD 6701 is not a sampling class, but a class for analytics. Moreover, we don't just go to ask people to research due to the IRB process and human subjects protection. Anyway, that's how I managed to have my just preliminary, a very initial preliminary survey questionnaires at the beginning stage of the item development. I had several people who were doctoral students. They needed practice and experience in survey instrument, scale development, and so I volunteered. So now I have had the opportunity to have their survey responses to my own survey questionnaires to give me initial idea how I can refine the items better. Purposive sampling is also another very common sampling strategy. In purpose of sampling, you have a particular criterion that you want your participants to meet before they are eligible for your experiment. So earlier, I'm not sure I was mentioning the inclusion and exclusion criteria before, but anyway, the inclusion criteria is when you are looking for specific characteristics that your participants must have. An exclusion criteria is where you're ruling them out of your study because they have criteria that they should not have. So examples of this would be, I want a very specific group of people, such as African American women who were studying political science, orphans between the ages of 3 and 12. These have very specific inclusion criteria. In some cases, you can screen for inclusion or exclusion criterion by sending out a brief survey before you actually collect the majority of your data from your participants and simply asking if they have these particular characteristics there that you are interested in. Other times, people will go specifically to population areas where you know that these people will be, such as if I am interested in African American studying political science, I may go over to the political science department, or if there is a club or organization specific to political science or African American women, then I am recruit my participants from that. Likewise, if I'm interested in orphans between the ages of 3 and 12, then I might go to orphanages to specifically seek my participants. In random sampling, ideally, we want to identify all sources of the sampling population, determine the sampling frame which encompasses that population, and then randomly sampled from all of those sources. This can be very difficult. So for instance, if my population of interest is all hospitals in the United States, I'll first have to identify every single hospital in the United States and then try to randomly sample patients from each of those hospitals. Or if I was if what I was interested in was the hospital themselves, not specifically the patient. Okay, again, I would have to identify all hospitals in the United States and then randomly select those hospitals. This of course assumes that I am able to identify all of those hospitals and that I have the opportunity to sample from each of them. There are several different methods for using random sampling. The first one is called stratified sampling. And stratified sampling, each strata is represented in each condition. Proportional stratified sampling is a little bit different because in proportional stratified sampling, it mimics the proportions from the population. So usually in your traditional stratified sampling, you're getting an equal number of people in each condition. Whereas with the proportional stratified, it's not going to be equal unless the population is equal. The unequal balance in the groups. So for instance, if I'm looking at males and females, my strata would be males and females. So I would then have to sample from the population of males and females. If my population sample size was 800 males and I had 1,200 females in my population with stratified sampling, even though I have more females than males, I would still sample an equal number of males and females. In proportional stratified sampling, I will sample the proportion of males equal to the population and proportion of females equal to the population of females. So in males, 800 represents 40% of that population. Females represent 60% of that population. Therefore, if I wanted a sample of 100 people, then I would select 40 males and 60 females, okay? Proportional stratified sampling is more realistic in terms of representing your population. However, I found a lot of people for the purpose of statistical power would go with the stratified sampling. So if you have more sample sizes, bigger sample size, then you have a higher statistical power. Another method for using random sampling is multi-stage sampling, also known as clustered sampling. Your textbook, or Bobby textbook for 6700 also refers to this as a type of clustered sampling. In this case, people are selected from hierarchical groups. So you start with a very big group of or category. And once you select categories from that bigger group, then you randomly select from that smaller group. And then from a smaller group within that, and then a smaller group within that. My example, I'm going to use is sampling from the United States. So my population of interest is people within the United States. However, I know that I can't sample from every single state and every single county and every single block. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to randomly say sample from each of those groups. So my biggest level is the US in general. And so from the United States, I'm going to randomly select 20% of the states. In this case, let's say I'm going to sample the light green states. So therefore, my random sample will include Alaska, Idaho, New Mexico, Nevada, Kentucky, Pennsylvania, Maine, Massachusetts, North Carolina, and Florida. Once I randomly selected each of my 10 states, I would then randomly select, say, counties within each state. Okay, so even though this picture only depicts Florida, I would actually randomly select counties from the other states in green from the previous slide. In this case, let's say instead of selecting 20%, I'm going to select 25% of the counties. Those would be the ones in, say, orange. So that means that I would select Orange County, Duval County, Putnam County, and all of the counties that you see here on this map in orange. Yeah, Orange County in London. Okay, so oops. Okay, this is pretty much done for sampling for article critic 2. Good luck